Modern love feels like swimming in an ocean full of people, yet dying of thirst. We're living in a world where meeting someone new has never been easier. One simple swipe, and you can meet hundreds of people. Names, faces, even preferences and fantasies appear one after another. They're from every city, every background, every time zone. Technology has erased distance, but with each new match, something strange happens. The more people we connect with, the lonelier we feel. The more conversations we have, the less we feel understood. And the more options we see, the harder it is to know who would actually stay if nothing was left to impress. Modern dating isn't about searching for someone to love. It's about optimizing yourself to be chosen. It's no longer a journey of discovering someone's soul. It's a numbers game, a performance, an ad, profile pictures, bios, shared interests, witty lines, curated smiles. They've replaced awkward silences, genuine connection, and emotional presence. We don't meet people anymore. We swipe through portfolios. Today, love feels like walking through a giant supermarket. The shelves are packed, the choices are endless, but somehow, nothing feels satisfying. Each conversation is a snack. Each date is a quick sugar hit. We're full for a moment, then empty again. And we start to wonder, maybe we just haven't found the right person yet. Or maybe we're not good enough. But maybe, just maybe, it's not us that's broken. Maybe it's the way we've been taught to search for love that no longer fits what the human heart actually needs. It's not rare anymore to meet someone who has casual sex regularly, but who can't remember the last time they were held. Just to feel safe. Just to be close, not for sex. Just to be wanted in silence. The easier it gets to access someone's body, the harder it seems to access their soul. We've forgotten what it feels like to be truly seen. To have someone look into our eyes and not just see potential, but presence. To breathe next to someone who isn't judging or calculating or weighing your value. Just being there, with you, without agenda. Instead, we check notifications. We keep swiping. We assume intimacy is waiting in the next match. But it never is. Because we're not searching for connection anymore. We're searching for distraction from the ache of not being known. Somewhere along the way, we changed the definition of love. It used to be about two imperfect people learning how to stay. Now it's an unspoken deal, two high-functioning individuals, polished and presentable, who agree to enjoy each other until one of them gets bored. Be attractive, be successful, be funny. Don't catch feelings too soon. Don't demand anything real. And most of all, be replaceable. Here's the truth most people are too afraid to admit. We don't really know what love is anymore. We know what it feels like to be chosen, and we know how to perform. We know how to impress. But we've forgotten how to simply stay. We've forgotten how to reveal the fragile parts of ourselves without feeling like we'll be left for doing so. And that's where it gets darker than just another breakup or another failed talking stage. That's when we realize something deeper, something we don't want to say out loud. Modern dating didn't just change how we love, it changed what we believe love is. First dates are no longer places to connect. They're stages to perform. Have you ever walked into a date and felt like you were walking into a job interview? You prepare your lines, rehearse how to smile just enough, pick the right outfit to send the right signal. Not too serious, not too eager. Be smart, be interesting. Be natural but also perfectly composed. Get close but not too close. Don't seem desperate. It's not a meeting of souls. It's a performance. In modern dating, people no longer show up with genuine curiosity. They show up with a silent checklist. Don't ask too much and don't feel too deeply. Don't reveal how lonely you actually are, because if you slip even slightly out of line, the consequences aren't just rejection, they're exposure. You're not just ghosted, you're screenshot, mocked, shared, turned into content for strangers to laugh at on social media. I know a man, a kind one, not conventionally attractive, but honest. On a first date, he made a small awkward joke. It didn't land. The next day, his friend sent him a story on Instagram. It read, "If a guy ever says this on a first date, just leave. No names." But he knew it was him. After that, he refused to meet anyone in person unless they chatted for weeks first, just to be sure he wouldn't become someone's punchline again. That's the painful truth. People today aren't afraid of rejection. They're afraid of being recorded, of being judged in a moment they didn't even get to explain. So everyone stays guarded, everyone performs, everyone shows only the best version of themselves, until there's nothing left that's real. We forget that intimacy doesn't grow from perfection. It grows from awkwardness, from a bad joke, a nervous silence, an unsure glance, from saying honestly, "I'm a little scared," when no one dares to be real. All that's left is theater. The girl laughs at the right time. The guy nods on cue. They talk about work, about safe interests, about things that are likable but empty. No one says, "I've been alone for so long." No one says, "I'm tired of pretending this is enough." No one says, "I'm not here to impress. I'm here to feel." Real connection only happens when two people are brave enough to take off the mask. But no one wants to be the first, because if you take yours off and the other person keeps theirs on, it hurts. So both keep performing. They toast, smile, say goodbye, and go home thinking, "That was fine, but why do I still feel empty?" Maybe it's because we no longer live inside our connections. We rehearse them, we act them out, and pray that one day something real will accidentally show up in the middle of the script. Here's the truth. We're not lacking chances to meet new people. We're lacking the courage to show up as who we really are. Because in modern dating, we perform connection instead of living it. When men learn love through porn, they forget how to truly feel. There's something many men will never say out loud. It's the fear they feel when facing a real woman. Not because they don't want connection, but because they have no idea what to do when connection requires full presence. When there's no script, no performance, just one person waiting to be felt, not impressed. I once heard a man share how he started watching porn at 12. It was his first education on female bodies, on how to touch, how to speak, how to prove himself. He didn't realize those scenes, choreographed moans and curated angles, were shaping his entire understanding of love and sex. He didn't realize those same images would later paralyze him in front of a real woman. Because a real woman blushes, gets nervous, says no, looks into your eyes and notices when you're not truly there. Erectile dysfunction isn't always about health. Sometimes it's the outcome of a mind so tense, so fixated on performing that the body no longer knows how to respond. Many men turn to unlabeled gas station pills, hoping to feel capable again. But what they don't realize is that capability doesn't come from hardness. It comes from honesty. And when the mind is busy trying to perform, there's no room left to feel. Porn doesn't destroy men. It just teaches them the wrong way to love. It teaches them to do more, harder, longer, to chase noises as validation, to move like a machine. to impress, dominate, conquer, but it doesn't teach them how to listen to a slowing breath, or pause when the other person's eyes start to worry, or know that sometimes a still hug in silence is deeper than anything else that happens in a bed. So they become men who know how to have sex but don't know how to connect, who can make someone climax but can't make them want to stay. We live in an age where everything can be simulated except emotion. You can study positions, learn techniques, memorize tips. But if you're not fully present with the person in front of you, it's just two bodies colliding. Nothing opens. Nothing sinks. Nothing matters. We now live in a world where men know how to be naked but not how to be seen. They know how to take off their clothes but not how to take off their armor. They know how to make someone tremble but not how to tremble themselves. And when someone tries to touch that vulnerable part in them, they pull away. Not because they don't want to be touched, but because no one ever taught them that being vulnerable is not weakness. It's the beginning of something real. So they go back to the screen. Back to women who always say yes, who always look happy, who never ask for presents, who never need anything real, and they call it safety. That is the quiet twist of this generation. We choose screens over skin and call it safety. When no one dares to speak the truth, love quietly dies in silence. They looked like the perfect couple. No arguments, no jealousy, and no drama. They ate together, slept next to each other, posted photos that made their friends say, "They're such a peaceful pair." But the truth was, no one in that relationship had said anything honest in a very long time. She wanted to tell him how distant she felt whenever he went silent for hours without a word. That sometimes all she wanted was a quiet hug. No explanations, no reason, just presence. But she was afraid. Afraid he'd think she was needy, or worse, weak. He wanted to say he was tired, that work was draining him, that he wasn't sure he still felt the same, but he held it back, afraid she'd be hurt, or think he was preparing to leave. So they both chose the easier path. Smile, stay silent, maintain the illusion of peace. No fights, but also no truth. That's how relationships often die. Not with betrayal, not with some explosive fights, but with slow, quiet erosion, drops of silence. Days of unsaid thoughts, nights where nothing is wrong, but nothing feels right. Most people believe love only ends with cheating or heartbreak, but the truth is, love often dies long before that. It dies when we stop showing up honestly, when we swallow every fear because we're too scared it'll be misunderstood, when we say "I'm fine" again and again until nothing feels real anymore. Intimacy doesn't die from conflict. It dies from avoidance, from politeness, from two people trying so hard not to hurt each other that they forget how to be close. And that's when the quietest kind of loneliness begins. The kind where two people live separate lives inside the same relationship. They share a bed but not their minds. They eat dinner but not each other's worries. They love, but from a distance that grows a little more every day. What hurts most is knowing that many of these relationships could have been saved if just one person had spoken the truth, not to blame, not to accuse. Just to say, "This is how I feel." But starting that kind of honesty feels like jumping off a cliff, because vulnerability feels dangerous when you're not sure you'll be caught. And so, no one speaks. Both pretend they're okay, until one day, there's nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to say, and no one left who wants to listen. Love doesn't die in noise, it dies in silence. in the silence that should have been a safe space but became a wall between two people who once loved each other deeply. The only thing that can still save intimacy is honesty. He used to think that keeping a woman meant being good. Good at gestures, good in bed, good at holding it together. He learned how to kiss at the right moment, how to surprise her, how to stay in control when things got physical. But no one ever taught him how to speak from his heart. Then he met her. Not the most beautiful woman, not the most eloquent, but the first person who looked him in the eyes while he was quiet and asked, "Is there something you're not saying?" He froze. He wanted to tell her. But he hesitated. He was afraid that if he spoke his fear, she'd see him as weak, that she'd leave like others had. He stayed silent for a long time, and then, finally, he whispered, "I'm always scared people will leave once they see I'm not perfect." She didn't respond right away. She just looked at him, then gently smiled and said, "You can tell me the truth, I won't leave." And he cried. It was the first time he felt kept, while being completely undone. People often think intimacy is about skill. The more experience, the better. But real intimacy doesn't start with action. It starts with safety. When you don't have to be strong, when you don't have to control every breath, when you don't have to worry you'll be judged just for being unsure. Behind every moment of real closeness isn't a technique. It's an unspoken message: I'm here. I see you. I'm not going anywhere. The human body is simple. It only relaxes when it feels safe, when it's not pressured, when it's not being observed like a performance, and only when it relaxes, emotion flows. Only then, connection becomes possible. Only then, something real can happen without needing to be impressive. There are men who live their whole lives without ever crying in front of their partner, and women who've never said, "I feel alone even when you're here." Not because they don't want intimacy, but because they've never experienced what it feels like to be held, when being completely honest. So they learn to perform, to touch without opening, to love without letting anyone in. But there's a truth that changes everything once you understand it. The deepest desire isn't sex. It's to be fully seen and still held. We don't need someone perfect. We just need someone who won't walk away when we stop pretending to be. And honesty is the last spark that keeps intimacy alive. We didn't lose love. We just failed to recognize it when it didn't look like the movies. He used to believe he knew exactly the kind of woman he wanted to be with. She had to be smart, beautiful, witty, stylish, socially sharp, someone people admired when she stood next to him. And eventually, he met someone just like that. She had it all. Every time they went out together, people turned heads. The photos were perfect, the compliments endless. But deep inside, something felt off, a quiet emptiness he couldn't name. He walked away after a few months, not because anything was wrong, but because he realized he was always performing, always trying to be enough around her. Every word was measured, every touch had to land just right. Every moment together felt like he was playing a role he wasn't sure he wanted to keep. Later, he met someone else. Nothing remarkable. She wasn't stunning. She didn't talk much, a little awkward in crowds. But the first time they sat next to each other, he noticed something different. He didn't have to try so hard. He could tell stories without worrying if he sounded smart. He could sit in silence without being asked what was wrong. When he was exhausted, she simply said, "Then let's not do anything today." There was no need to impress, no pressure to maintain the energy, no image to uphold, just presence. And that's when he understood what he'd been chasing all along wasn't someone ideal for the world. It was someone who made him feel safe being no one but himself. Real love doesn't arrive with fireworks or cinematic timing. It doesn't always come with sparks or music playing in your head. It doesn't shout or perform or beg to be seen. Sometimes, real love comes quietly in the form of someone no one notices but who finally lets you breathe again. We didn't lose love, we just stopped recognizing it. When it didn't match the picture we had in our heads, and sometimes, the kind of love we ignore is the only kind that ever had a chance to keep us whole, because real love won't make your friends jealous, it will simply quiet your soul. Real love won't impress your friends, but it will quiet your soul. Most people aren't afraid of love. They're afraid of being laughed at for loving. Biologically and socially, women carry a deep fear of being harmed, violated, betrayed, abandoned after giving everything. That's why so many are cautious, guarded, and only open up when they feel completely safe. Men, on the other hand, hold a fear that's less visible but just as deep. Men aren't afraid of being rejected with words, or they're afraid of being laughed at in silence. They're not afraid of loving. They're afraid of being seen as inadequate after giving everything. There was a man who once loved with his whole heart. He was honest, sincere, and although inexperienced, he tried to understand the woman he was with. Their relationship lasted a few months. It seemed peaceful, until one day after they broke up, he found himself at the center of a public conversation. The woman had posted something online. Worst part is when you fall for a guy who's absolutely useless in bed. No name, no tags, but everyone around them knew. And inside, he broke. Not because of ego, but because that was the first time he had loved without pretending. The first time he gave himself without defense. The first time he let someone see his imperfections, hoping that love would be the space to grow together. After that, he stopped loving deeply. He started controlling everything. He kept his relationships casual, surface level, on his terms. Always pulled away first. Never let anyone get close enough to see his soft spots. He made sure no one would ever laugh again. It wasn't because he stopped believing in women. He stopped believing that a man could be vulnerable and still be loved. We raise boys to be tough, to not cry, to not break, to always know what to do. But do we ever ask them, were you ever allowed to learn? Did anyone ever hold you and say, you don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love? We teach our sons to be silent in their pain, and then expect them, as men, to be safe harbors for someone else's storms while inside. They're still little boys who were never allowed to tremble. Most people don't fear love. They fear being ridiculed when they love sincerely. They fear that their gentleness will be mistaken for weakness, that their honesty will become someone else's joke. Maybe what needs healing isn't how we love, but the belief that we'll still be held even when we're not performing. Because real strength isn't about staying hard all the time, it's about staying soft in a world that mocks softness. We expect men to be strong, but real strength is staying soft in a world that mocks softness. Love is instinctual, but intimacy is a language we were never taught. He used to think love was a checklist of actions. Bring flowers. Say the right words. Be good in bed. Stay calm. Keep her interested. He believed if he did enough, if he was soft enough, strong enough, skilled enough, someone would finally stay. Then one day, he loved while feeling empty. He had no plan, no strategy. He met a woman when his life was at its weakest point. No job, no clarity, low self-worth. One night, as they laid beside each other, they didn't have sex. There were no seductive whispers, He simply turned to her, looked her in the eyes, and said, "I'm not sure I have anything left to offer someone." She didn't reply right away. She reached out, touched his hand, and whispered, "You don't have to give me anything. I just want to be here with you." And for the first time in his life, he felt loved not for performing, but for being real. That was the moment he realized something deeper. Love might be natural, but real intimacy is something we have to learn from scratch. Sex is biology. We're born with that drive. But intimacy, emotional closeness, is a language, and most of us were never taught to speak it. There's no school that teaches you how to feel someone's breath slow when they're scared. No one shows you how to sit in silence and still make someone feel loved. No one teaches us that saying, "I don't even know what I'm feeling right now," might be the beginning of real connection. We learn how to seduce from social media. We learn how to perform in bed from porn. We learn how to protect ourselves from heartbreak. But we never learn how to take the armor off when it's safe to be held. And that's why so many relationships collapse before they ever reach depth. Not because there's no love, but because no one knows how to speak the language of closeness. Intimacy is showing someone your unfinished wounds and watching them not flinch. It's saying, "I'm not okay," and hearing, "You don't have to be." It's admitting you're lost and having someone sit next to you without asking for answers. The most intimate thing you've ever done might not be sex. It might be staying when someone is falling apart, not to fix them, not to run, just to stay. Maybe the most intimate thing you can do is stay when someone is being their worst, not to fix them, not to run, just stay. And if you've ever wondered why love keeps slipping away, maybe it's time to ask a different question. If you stopped performing, would you still be lovable?